Embrace the Globe 21.
Yes, we are.
I'm Spencer.
And I'm Daniel.
And today we are going to check out 10 weird things about life in Australia. This is from the same guy, Aussie English. He did the 50
right?
slang terms here. So we learned it today.
Hey, we're learning, man. I'm here for it. Australia is I know one person that lives in Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, lives in Perth. I haven't communicated with her in a long time. But then I think she moved to New Zealand. Anyway, this is interesting because what she would tell me would blow my mind. But I didn't absorb all of it, obviously. Yeah. So I'm here for it.
So this will be a refresher for you and a new experience for me.
Yeah, this will be new for me, man. That was like years ago. So.
All right, then. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
3, 2, 1.
What's going on, guys? I'm Pete from Aussie English. Welcome to this episode today where I'm going to be talking about culture shock in Australia. Let's get into it. All right, so I was recently chatting to my wife, trying to come up with a list of things that she had culture shock with when she came to Australia. So if you don't know, my wife is originally from Brazil. Hey, Hakel, if you're watching. And so she came to Australia, and obviously Brazil is a different country, different culture. When she got to Australia, there were a bunch of different things that she found strange. Cultural aspects of Australian life that she found different, weird, strange. So I made a list, and now let's go through 10 of those things, okay? And let me know in the comments below if you found them weird as well. All right. Number 1. Cars are incredibly cheap secondhand in Australia. So cars in Australia are actually really expensive when they're new, at least as far as I know, comparatively speaking, especially if you get into luxury cars like European luxury cars like Mercedes, BMW and Audi. In Australia, we used to have the Ford and Holden manufacturers here building the cars in Australia. They no longer do that. When they did that though, the government put tax on any cars that were luxury cars more than $60,000. And so you'll find that a lot of these cars from overseas that are luxury cars, especially those from Europe, will be very expensive compared to other places in the world. She also found that second-hand cars were incredibly cheap. In Brazil, cars, whether new or second-hand, are apparently much more expensive, relatively speaking, than they are here. For instance, when I bought my second-hand Ford Falcon that I got recently, I recently gave it away though, but when I bought that second-hand, it was about 12 years old and it cost me $3,000. When I bought my first Holden wagon, again, it was about 18 years old and it cost me $2,500. So it wasn't very much at all. So there you go. In Australia, cars, if they're secondhand, can be incredibly cheap.
Did he say 18 years old?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
I don't know about Holden. I think I read somewhere, because I'm a big NASCAR fan, that Holden is like GM's equivalent of Chevrolet in Australia.
Cool.
So, but that's, for many years, not particularly now, secondhand cars were definitely cheaper than their new counterparts, like extremely cheaper. But with the way our economy is right now, with inflation, like it's almost sometimes it'll be less expensive to buy a new car. Yeah. So there was a time where secondhand cars were a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So,
it's interesting. So so this is going to be in the perspective of his wife from Brazil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not from an American perspective.
Okay. Cool.
There might be overlaps. There may not
Maybe.
be. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 2, cuts of meat. This is one that totally caught me by surprise. I had never thought about this, but the cuts of meat in Australia are very different from how they are in Brazil. One example was when I was looking up how to do Brazilian barbecues in Australia. I wanted to buy some meat and I wanted to try and do them authentically Brazil style, churrasco. I tried to get the cut of meat for picanha. Picanha is a style of Brazilian barbecue where they buy the rump part of the beef, like from the bull, right? And they put salt on it, there's fat on the beef, and they do it on a barbecue. I tried to go and get this, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find the picanha cut of meat at any different butchers that I went to. So I had to specifically ask them to get the entire part of the cow that they normally chop up into different cuts and remove that part for me to then use, because actually for them, they would chop it up and use it as porterhouse steaks, which were cut through that slice of meat, usually like this, as opposed to taking out the whole section, the rump section, and using that instead. So I had no idea that the cuts of meat in Australia are very different from those in Brazil. And if you want to get the certain cuts of meat that you want to use from other cultures, other countries, you might have to go and specifically ask a butcher to cut them for you.
Wow.
Okay. So that's weird that I mean, certain butchers you can buy bigger parts of the cow. Just depends on where you are. But that was interesting that he said that porterhouses or ribeyes come from the rump. No, that's. Hold on. Let me see if I can demonstrate it with my own body here. Give me a second here.
Yes.
Because I've watched too much Good Eats with Alton Brown, and he explains this. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Here.
So, here we go, guys.
So the rump roast is right here on the cow, that right there, and the ribeyes in the States are cut from like the short loin right here in the middle of the back. So are you saying, Australia, that you have a different names for your cuts here?
Possibly.
That's interesting here.
That's possibly true. I wouldn't put it past them, because I mean, I feel like barbecue culture is massive in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
So, cookout culture. Well, no, barbecue culture. Yeah, whatever.
Okay, for context on that one, I live in the Bible Belt south of the United States, and you don't call a barbecue a grill. That's not an action. Barbecue is the term for smoked meat, like pork shoulder, brisket, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What we call that is a cookout.
Yeah.
The act of grilling, burgers, hot dogs, whatever on there. Yeah. So what's your term for it? Let us know down below.
Yeah, let me know.
Mm-hmm. Number 3, toilet paper. Toilet paper. So I was aware that toilet paper isn't a universal thing when I went to Southeast Asia for the first time. I went to Indonesia, where some of the motels and hotels would have toilet paper because I guess they were used to foreigners from the West coming to Indonesia. But a lot of the time they had a hole in the ground and a bucket of water that you would use to wash yourself. Makes sense, but in Australia we use toilet paper. One thing that was shocking to Kel was the fact that in Australia you can flush toilet paper down the toilet, because in Brazil the sewer system isn't set up to be able to handle flushing of toilet paper, so instead of flushing it, you have to put it in a bin next to the toilet and empty that every day. So there you go. Toilet paper was one of those strange things in Australia that you can flush down the toilet.
Oh my God, that's another layer. So Brazil is on my list of places to go. So that's honestly good to know that when you wipe, don't flush it down the toilet. Put it in a trash can. Oh,
that's crazy. Yep. Nuts.
And and the whole water, using a bucket to I don't know how that works. I guess I'm gonna have to learn if I'm gonna go to Taiwan or the Philippines or something like that.
Bring some latex gloves, bud.
Latex gloves.
That's gonna be a very interesting learning process right there. I'm not gonna be jealous of.
Yeah. Okay. But good to know there's toilet paper in Australia. That's what we're used to in America.
Hell yeah, so you can flush it too. Fuck
yeah.
Fuck yes, viewers.
Yeah, but I will say I do love when I had a bidet at my my ex's house. I bought that and installed it, and my God, that was a game changer.
Game changer. There you go, man.
Uh-huh.
Good for you, man. Hell yeah.
It takes me back to that rant you had about
no
the bidet
Yep.
on an Idiot Abroad reaction we did on ETS.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Oh man.
Number 4, coffee culture in Australia. Any of you guys who have come to Australia and spent a significant amount of time in some of the big cities in particular, like Sydney and Melbourne, will know that we are mental. We are crazy about our coffee. We take that stuff seriously. There are probably hundreds of cafes in the CBDs of Sydney and Melbourne alone. The quality of the beans that are used, the variety of different coffees that you can get, and the artisanry that is used, the skill with which people are trained up to make the coffee is pretty much as good as it ever gets anywhere in the world, at least I'm told, right? I used to work in a cafe, and that was one of the things they prided themselves most on, the quality of their coffee. So it may be a shock when you come to Australia that the coffee is very, very good. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places. Probably not very good if you go to Starbucks, because that's American style, and Americans, they have their own way of doing coffee. Number 5.
Wow, we literally just checked out a video from the CNBC channel of why Starbucks failed in Australia.
Yeah.
And that was eye-opening that they have such a big coffee culture in Australia.
Blew my mind, man. I did not know.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the last part of that video, they're saying that they're going to put Starbucks' new plan is to put it in like high tourist areas for American and Chinese tourists who are accustomed to Starbucks. So I'd still rather take the local stuff, man.
Oh yeah, always.
Yeah.
Their own way of doing coffee. Number 5, barbecues at camping grounds and at the beach. So again, I grew up in Australia. I used to go camping all the time, several times a year with my parents. We would go to places in the bush, you know, forests, national parks, places like Wilson's Promontory in Victoria. Every time you go to those places, there tend to be places where you can barbecue food, you can cook food. Quite often they have gas, you might have to put some money in there to be able to use the gas. Maybe you have to bring your own fuel for the barbecue, you know, there might be some places, campsites where you have to make the fire yourself, but pretty much every campsite you go to will have some kind of barbecue for you to cook food. And it's the same for a lot of beaches that have tourist spots where people come in large numbers and they want to have food. So there's barbecues everywhere. This was something that Kel found really strange, and it wasn't the cultural norm in Brazil for you to go to camping grounds or to beaches and find places to just barbecue your own food. If you wanted to do that, you'd have to bring your own. BYO Barbie. In Australia, you don't have to.
Wow. Okay, so in parks and in certain beaches in the U.S., there are grills there. There are oftentimes you'll have to bring your own charcoal. I haven't seen a lot of gas ones or propane ones, mostly charcoal based. So, but we do have that in America.
Yep.
And good to know that's not in Brazil.
No, it's just they probably lack the infrastructure to maintain that. Like that's just that's what I'm thinking. Because, you know, Australia prides itself on tourism and it's a very outdoor culture. Like very adventure based Subaru commercial.
Yeah,
you know?
Like 85% of the population lives near the coast.
Yeah.
So it's part of the culture.
Yeah. 100%. So okay, that's kind of cool. That's not really shocking. That's just reassuring.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool, neat.
Yeah. Put below, where's the best beach?
Yes.
Because we love us a good beach.
100%.
We're beach bums as when we can get over to them. Like
very true.
Yeah. But like the salt life, you know, put the salt sticker, like you visit it once or twice a year, that type of thing.
Yes. I do love a proper beach, not an northern Atlantic beach. It's not a beach.
Yeah. Pretty much anything north of Ocean City that's not a beach.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Number 6, and this is one that Brazilians always tell me whenever I meet them. Our secondhand culture in Australia is different from Brazil, probably elsewhere in the world as well. So what happens if I have a couch in my house that I don't want anymore? I don't just throw it out. I don't just give it away to friends, although, you know, you could do that if you wanted. Quite often what will be done is it'll be taken outside, put on the nature strip with some cardboard that says free. And so people know that if they see junk or chairs, TVs, furniture, all that sort of stuff, if they see that in the nature strip out the front of someone's house, they know that it's free. Someone can take that, that it's free to a good home, that anyone can come and pick that up and take it home. And we do that all the time. A lot of the stuff that we have in our house is either bought secondhand online through places like Gumtree or Facebook, or we've seen it on the side of the road and thought, we don't want to waste that, we want to use it, so let's just bring it home and use it. So that's something you'll notice in Australia quite a lot. When you drive around the streets, there'll be furniture on nature strips, there'll be secondhand stuff, and it's free to be picked up. Number 7.
I bought a bookshelf off Gumtree recently.
Oh, man. That's similar. I would say that's very similar to here.
Yeah. That's very similar. Although we don't have Gumtree, we have either Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, or eBay if you want to buy it, you know. And yeah.
The best way to get rid of stuff here, free.
Yeah.
Free. Put it
out there with a cardboard sign, free. Free. It's good to know that's similar, you know?
That's nice. Hey, man. Yeah. It's interesting why that's a culture shock out there, though. Yeah. That's interesting. But that's a different video, I guess.
Yeah.
And stuff, and it's free to be picked up. Number 7, drinking water from the tap. This was another one that shocked me quite a lot because it's something I take for granted, that the water in our water system that gets brought to our houses is drinkable. You can drink the water out of the shower, when you're having a bath, you can drink any of the water that comes out of the pipes in your house, generally, right? Should be all good. That is not the case elsewhere in the world. Quite often when I was traveling in Southeast Asia, that would definitely not be something that foreigners like me should do, because we would quite often end up with sickness, end up on the toilet, riding the porcelain throne for quite a few days with a digestive illness. In Australia, it tends to be fine. We put chlorine in the water to kill everything. There's fluoride in there too for your teeth. So that was something that really shocked me. Elsewhere in the world, you may not be able to drink out of the taps. I know that in Brazil, they quite often have purifiers for their water right next to their sinks in their kitchens. In Australia, you won't see those things. There may be purifiers on the taps themselves, or people may have some kind of equipment in the fridge, you know, a jug that purifies the water. But generally, anywhere in Australia that has flowing water that comes out of taps, it's fine to drink, unless it says otherwise.
Okay. Another similarity to the U.S. is that, yeah, we do chlorinate and fluoride our water here, and it makes it safe to drink and improves our dental health too.
Yeah.
Me personally, with because here at my Nana's house, we get our water from a well, and my mom has a history of getting kidney stones from that. So what I do is I run my water through a Brita filter.
Okay.
And drink it from there.
Yeah.
So
no, we're on a well too, but we have to get our water tested every, I would say, year. You know, just to see, because we live in the back of a field that used to be cultivated, so you just always want to just keep tabs on that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know. Flowing water means you can drink it right from the spigot.
Yeah, there you go. And I think something I'll invest in for traveling is one of those life straws or something like that to drink water in, just to be safe. You know, I don't want to spend most of my travels on the toilet.
Nope, you don't.
Number 8, and I'm totally guilty of this, leaving things unlocked. So we live in Ocean Grove, which is a seaside town down the coast, about an hour and a half away from Melbourne. And quite often, I leave the doors unlocked in the house. I leave my car unlocked. it tends to be a very safe place. There's very little robbery, there's very little criminality taking place in Ocean Grove. Most places in Australia tend to be pretty safe, and you won't see things like massive locks on doors, grills protecting windows and doors, and people leaving their cars and their houses unlocked. Don't get me wrong, I definitely lock it from time to time when I'm going away or I'm going out for a long period of time and no one's at home. But this was something that my wife Kel from Brazil found very strange, that you would just leave doors open, or you would go to bed and have the gauze doors shut at night, which could just be opened to let air in. She would find that very strange that they would not be locked, and also that you wouldn't lock your car. Number 9.
Okay, yeah. Definitely in the more rural areas that we both live in, I leave the doors unlocked. Because we don't need to worry about crime. Do you leave your doors unlocked or locked?
Yeah. No, the house locked.
Okay.
Car, I don't give a shit. Like,
okay, yeah.
That if I lock my car door, it's because I accidentally did it. You go. Like I couldn't be bothered to. But no, I mean, Holly has always been a big locking of doors person. But I grew up, no doors were ever locked. In my childhood home out in the sticks in Damascus, not Syria, like, it's just, if you were going to waste half a tank of gas to rob my house, like, it's not going to end well. The doors were always open.
Yeah, and that was a big culture shock when I lived in North Carolina for 15 years of my life in a rural area. We never had our doors locked. When I moved up to the DC area and, living in Northern Virginia and later in Maryland with my ex, we locked doors. Like, there's just more paranoia up there. And where my ex and I lived, it was definitely more, you needed to lock your doors around that area.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. But no, I feel like for him, I think maybe that's just an area kind of thing. Like, wherever he's living, he knows where he's living, so he's like, you know what, no. But I feel like that's wherever you go. If you're in the middle of fucking nowhere, you're not locking your doors.
Yeah.
But if you're living in the city with tons of people that you don't know, you lock your doors.
Yeah. And especially if it's like a more crime-ridden area, like just looking through a few videos of people that are going through like Rio, like there are certain areas you want to avoid, and be careful. So I guess that would be a culture shock.
Yeah.
Walking the streets at night.
Here we go.
So when I met my wife, I was living in Melbourne, in North Melbourne, and quite often I would be busy during the day studying, and then I would go to the gym, I would go and do jiu-jitsu, I would come home, and at maybe 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I would go for a run or I'd go for a walk, listen to a podcast, and just walk around the streets. I would walk through some of the parks like Royal Park or Prince's Park, and I'd be like, it's not a problem. That was a massive no-no for Kel. That was something that she would never, ever, ever do, because in Brazil, it's relatively unsafe to walk around by yourself at night, especially in places like parks where there's no light. So that was something that kind of shocked me as well. I was like, well, it's Australia. Well, it's pretty safe here. You can sort of walk around anywhere and it's, you're fine. Obviously, we have our own fair share of crime and sometimes bad things do happen to people, but usually you can walk around at night, especially in somewhere like a CBD, a city like Melbourne or Sydney, and you're perfectly safe. So that was something that she found very strange. That was a big culture shock for her when she found out that I would sometimes go for a walk around midnight throughout Melbourne, throughout the parks, with music in my ears or listening to a podcast, for an hour or so, and it was no big deal. But yeah, there you go.
Okay, I guess apply what we said in the last pause to this one.
Yep.
Safety and just,
awareness. Just like, I don't know. I feel like you're never gonna, if you grow up in a what's it called? Let's say, I guess where she's from, high crime, very unsafe surroundings. you know, where that's the norm. Just don't be out there at night. Be
Yeah.
inside. Yeah, that's a massive culture shock.
Yeah, yeah, kind of the same if you grew up in Baltimore or Detroit or maybe even like Atlanta. Like that would be, you don't go out past
Yeah.
a certain time at night.
Yeah, the same rules in her life would apply.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
probably more similar.
Yeah.
If she would have married someone in the middle of Detroit, Chicago, or Baltimore. Yeah, just
Yeah.
don't she would be fine. She would fit in. It'd be like a lateral move.
Yeah. Something like that.
Number 10, guys, the very last one for this episode in Australia is that there is very little rubbish or littering in Australia compared to a lot of other countries. Culturally, this is a big no-no. So I cringe every time I see someone smoking who throws their cigarette butt on the ground, because usually there's a bin within walking distance that they could just put the cigarette out and throw it in the bin. The same with throwing newspapers or any kind of rubbish, bottles, whatever it is, on the ground. That tends to be a very big social no-no. You don't do that. You put it in the trash. We have bins all over the country, in parks, on streets, where you can throw your rubbish out. So in Australia, littering, it occurs, people definitely litter, but it is a social no-no. You will quite often be yelled at, or people will say something if you do that in front of people, okay? So that's it for this episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to let me know down in
Littering, that's a big no-no here in the States as well.
Yeah, people do it.
It does happen. But there's ways to throw stuff away, recycle. So
It's crazy though, because in some countries, at least for me in South America, where I've been, some places are just trash ridden. At the same time, you could say that about a lot of big cities over here.
Yeah.
They're trash.
Especially New York. I've
Yeah.
been like down on two hands the amount of times I've been there, and yes, it's definitely a lot of litter there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is good, man.
This
This
is
is
great.
interesting. It gets the conversation going.
Yeah, yeah. In my eyes, that there's so many similarities between U.S. and Australian culture, and like comparing it to this guy's wife. So that was eye-opening.
That's interesting. I have more questions about Brazil.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Found some suggestions below of both Australia and Brazil, I guess.
Hey, man. Yeah, I'm there for it.
Yeah. And subscribing and watching another video. And wash your hands, scrub your toes, wipe your butt, blow your nose, embrace the globe.
Unplug and go on an adventure.
Exactly. See you next time.
Later, guys.
Fellas, we can be that mistake. Let's do this.